Here we are by the river, and the snakes have been for a little swim. It's amazing to see how they like to sniff around underwater at rocks. And they're really, really good swimmers. Oh, seems to have got a little spot on his scale. Oh, what's that? You have to check them after they've been swimming. And so let me ask one of the snakes what they want us to talk about today. So, Pendragon, what should we talk about today? His intensity. He wants you to know. I mean, it was quick. God, there was such intensity in his eyes. He's an intense guy. Florence, she's not so intense. She's very loving. But Pendragon, he knows what he wants and he doesn't like anything to get in his way. Whereas Florence, she's more versatile. If you want her to go somewhere, she can like go with the flow a little bit. He, on the other hand, King of the Dragons, it's not really negotiable and he won't compromise. So if he wants to go in a specific direction and you try and change that direction, he will get in a huff. And we know he gets in a huff because he goes and makes this really weird puffing sound. Now, that puffing sound can sometimes be when he's really excited, like if you're feeding him, but other times it can be like, leave me alone. And interestingly, he's not puffing right now, so he's okay with me holding him. Does he want to go for a swim? Do you want to go for a swim? Let's see. I don't know whether the camera will catch this. Yes, he did want to go for a swim, but not right now. You can see some water on him. Do you want to go for a swim? Wow, look at you. Wow, look at you. You got a dip in the stream. And so when people have snakes, this is for the reptile keepers out there or people that are just curious. They always think that they just sit there and they don't need much interaction and they don't have personalities. Well, I would argue against that. They have very specific personalities and they do like to go out and about and they get bored and they can get a little bit depressed. And so I make sure that their life is enriched. And if I do take them out and then I put them back in their tank, they'll let me know, like, come on, I want to go out again. And they get really excited when they're out. And if you watch them, they like to sniff the rocks. They like to have a little drink of the water. They like to meet people. They can read people's energy fields. They don't like certain energy fields of certain people. They're friendlier towards some people rather than others. They they deserve a lot of attention because when a species is very different to a stereotypical pet like a dog or a cat. Ooh, she's going to destroy the mic. No, 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 no. You have to pay a lot of attention because it's not that simple to read them. And so with snakes, keeping snakes is an exercise in mindfulness, because you're going to have to really dig deep to figure out, how are they feeling? Are they okay? Did they enjoy that interaction? Do they want this? Do they want that? And that's why I like to keep the snakes in my bedroom, so they're the first thing I wake up to and the last thing I see at night, so that I'm watching them as I fall asleep. I'm taking them out during the day. I'm checking, do they like that new stone I've added? Do they like a crystal I've put in? Which wood do they like? Do they like that hide? Where are they? What are they doing? And so sometimes it will be behavioral. You'll just notice, oh, they're always in there and they don't like that. But you do have to have the time and the energy and the mindfulness, and what you put in, you get back. So this is very true of a non-human relationship, that you really have to make an effort. You really have to not be lazy and pay attention and notice subtle things. And you can get bitten if you don't notice subtle things, or oh, they can disappear down the river if you don't know subtle things. So it's they're amazing escape artists. Like, she wanted to go swimming there, so she plunged into the river, and that's okay. I would have to be with her and my assistants and maybe have a snake hook to make sure that she doesn't just disappear down a hole. You cannot take your eyes off them. They're kind of like kids. You can't take your eyes off them. I'm sensing where they are at all times. Otherwise, an accident could happen, or they could disappear down somewhere and never be seen again. So if you're to take care of them and really love them, and they're to become part of your family, then it just takes a lot of mindfulness. But it's worth it. And these two are going to get big. These two are going to get about 6 or 7 foot, which will be easier in a way, because when they're really small, they can get lost or they can slither into little holes. And so that can be a problem, especially when they come out. You have to snake proof your house and make sure there's no escape routes. But because I like to take my snakes out into the park or into nature so they can sniff bits of moss and different plants and maybe go for a dip, it's it takes a lot of attention. They're not the easiest. It's not like a dog or a cat. If you're to really give them an enriching life. And also, snakes have different personalities. You might have a snake that isn't really into going out as much. These two are. These two are. And see, so he's now, come on, you. He wants to go burrow. You also have to understand the species differences. So she is arboreal, so she's happy when she's around my neck because she would be in trees. He, however, is ground dwelling, so has to be handled in a different way. He also has the capacity to eat other snakes, so he's been brought up never to be around or alone another snake, just in case. Not that I don't think it would happen, because I have never fed him another snake, and he gets used to eating certain things and wants to eat those certain things. He's also not wild, he's bred in captivity, but you still have to respect and pay attention and make sure that they're not left alone. I also don't handle my snakes alone, especially when they get big. There's usually another person around. especially if I put them around my neck, just in case they do constrict and it gets too tight. I can have somebody help. But I think that's like such a rarity. I mean, very few people are going to get throttled by their snake, but we just, just in case, especially when they get really big. Because if they did decide to squish, they're so, 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 so strong. So like anything, you use your common sense. And we never handle the snakes when there's any food defrosting. They're fed defrosted mice, defrosted chicks, defrosted rats, little ones. And we're always very careful. And they're fed with tongs and in a certain way. And so you have to understand that snakes, they have a switch that when they're in feeding, that, they're no longer your pet. So you have to be careful with that. And that's them doing their dharma. They do it extremely well. They're effective at keeping the rodent population down. And these two never miss a meal. They're quite greedy like that. So I have to be careful not to overfeed them because they would just eat until they popped. And there are companies in America where I am that provide frozen defrost food for them and feed the food really healthy diet, organic diet. And some people might find that uncomfortable, but it's nature, it's natural. They aren't ever going to be vegan. He can't eat lettuce. He doesn't like lettuce. He would die if he ate lettuce. He wouldn't even eat it in the first place. So people often ask, well, ew, how do you feed them? And when I first started, it was kind of a bit of an my intellect couldn't get around it. I used to do little guru pujas for the mouse, like thank you for giving up your life for the snake. Now I understand on a subtle level that maybe it's a privilege and the mouse signed up to be eaten. It understood that it was prey by taking on a body of a mouse. And what's interesting in India is if you get bitten or killed by a snake, you're given special funeral rites. And so people that are bitten by snakes, their bodies are not cremated, their bodies are sunk into the river, the holy river, because it's seen as a form of liberation to the soul. It's actually very auspicious. So different cultures have different beliefs around these things, aren't so horrified. And nature can be horrifying sometimes to the human personality, but I think we can challenge ourselves. And even though the personality might perceive certain aspects in nature as horrifying, that from a unity perspective, it isn't horrifying. And there is a soul contract between the predator and the prey. And there is this altruism there, this agreement and care. And so on one level, it looks scary and it looks unfair and poor little mouse. But on another level, it's quite beautiful and divine and cosmic. And so we want to move more into that direction. And Pendragon actually is an Eastern Indigo snake, and his dharma, his purpose is to keep rattlesnakes down, the rattlesnake population down. He's actually immune to venom. And so sometimes when people find that out, they go, I don't want to hold him. Oh my God, he's the one that eats rattlesnakes. Well, he doesn't eat rattlesnakes because I don't keep rattlesnakes to feed him. He's kept in captivity. He doesn't need to do that. If he was in the wild, that might happen. So he hasn't got a taste for other snakes. But notice, like, ooh, the personality might have a problem with that. The personality might find that scary. The personality might find that awful and judge Pendragon for being a snake that eats other snakes. But nature isn't judging Pendragon. The intelligence in nature is happy. The intelligence in nature supports Pendragon's wiring to eat rattlesnakes. So when we notice these judgments or these impulses for disgust, know that there's another way of perceiving things, that even if the personality can't quite grasp it, from a unity perspective, it's there. And the intelligence in nature, the predator-prey dynamic, dynamic, the predator-prey dynamic can be understood from a unified perspective. And even if we never really fully embody that or make contact with it, just know it exists and there's another way of understanding it. There's other ways of being and seeing the world. So when the personality starts to de-stress, notice, oh, my personality has a problem with this, but nature doesn't have a problem with this. That's interesting. I wonder whether some insights will arise in time so I can understand what nature understands. And you don't need to force it. Just know it exists, that you haven't maybe made contact with it, but it could arise at any time. And interspecies communication is happening, has happened in the past. And if we learn to communicate with animals non-verbally, we can have a deeper understanding, or we can intuit or instinctually know that everything's okay. Nothing bad is happening. And so I really pray that we can feel into the possibility that everything is okay, nothing bad is happening, nature is taking care of us, nature knows best. And may we have compassion for all beings for all time.